Welcome into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, and we have a player in the post, Elijah Campbell. Jen, the height equation has changed on this side of the boards today. The height equation has changed. We have a big man in the studio. Now, Bomani Jones has a clear distinction that he makes. He makes a distinction between big man and tall man.
Yes.
Now, in your game, are you big man or are you tall man?
Well, okay. So when I advanced through my basketball career and I got to the highest level I got to, I was tall man because they were running my lanky rear end off screens to shoot threes. So I moved from playing center in middle school, early high school. My freshman year, I played center. Because to this day, I mean, when I play pickup ball now, Preston, the jump hook's mean. I do play like the old dude at the YMCA who has got a bevy of post moves and still plays with his back to the basket like he's Al Jefferson.
A lot of up and unders.
A lot of up and unders. I still got that in me. But by the time I was like 17, 18 years old, I was playing AAU basketball, and it was more like, okay, well, if you want to play college ball, you're not playing with your back to the basket. We need to run you off screens. And you got to be able to shoot threes. So
also, what was your trajectory on the growth chart? Were you at 6'4" early? Did you arrive late at this height?
I was 6'4" early. Yeah. So I think I topped out 6'4" when I was a freshman in high school.
So they was definitely throwing you in the post.
So when I was playing freshman ball and we're playing all of our freshman opponents, I was, you're dumping it down to me and I'm posting up or I'm grabbing offensive rebounds, getting put backs. I'm setting screens. I'm doing the tip off at the beginning of games. And then varsity rolls around and we had a 6'7" center, a 6'6" power forward. And it's like, hey, you want to play, we need you to be able to put the ball on the floor or at least be able to catch and shoot.
You became tall man.
And I became tall man. Yeah, my game resembled more Kristaps Porzingis than it did Al Jefferson.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, if you're listening, that's our guy Elijah Campbell, who'll be joining us in studio all morning this morning. So we'll have a lot of fun. A lot of things will be going down. Appreciate it. So we'll be here. There'll be a lot of action going on. But NBA playoffs last night. We'll get to it. We'll have a lot of discussion because we got another basketball guy here, so I want to throw a lot of things off. But really quickly, let's just get to it. What's crazier, that the Celtics shot 63s or that they missed 45 of them?
Oh, that they missed 45.
Okay.
Like this year, they have gone all in on being one of those teams that shoots more threes than twos, and that's a recipe to their success. Because if you think about it, there's no way to guard them throughout the floor. I mean, everybody in the NBA plays with space now, with significant spacing, where everybody, you really can't get away in the NBA with having, more than one player on the floor who's not a threat to shoot threes. And which is why, to me, it's a miracle the Houston Rockets had the regular season they did, because they just can't shoot the ball, and that's the reason they got sent home early, is because they can't shoot the ball, and they have too many guys on the floor that aren't threats to make three-pointers. But the Boston Celtics, at all times, no matter who the center is, whether it's Porzingis, Al Horford, who's still getting it done. He's almost 40 years old. I mean, that guy won 2 national championships in college when I was in middle school, and he's still out there setting screens and hitting threes. Or when Luke Cornett even comes into the game, he's out there shooting threes as well. Like, they have 5 guys on the floor that just shoot well at all times, and you're not stopping all of them. That's how they won 60-plus games this year. It's how they won the title last year, is because they're not afraid to put up like a 60-piece in the three-point field goal attempt category, because normally they hit about 30 of them sometimes. They can hit.
So with that being said, them losing 108 to 105 to the Knicks last night, consider it a steal for the Knicks.
Oh yeah,
but also maybe not a great sign.
Yeah, it's a two-sided coin. So this is really, if you're like a Knicks fan, you're either glass half full or half empty type of deal here, because it's like, look, that's how the Knicks pulled out that series against the Pistons. I genuinely thought the Pistons were the better team in that series, almost every single game of it. But Jalen Brunson has somehow managed to carve a role out for himself in the NBA as like the ultimate closer of games. Like, that guy's like field goal percentage elevates in the last 5 or 6 minutes of a basketball game. And usually in the NBA playoffs, when in the last 5 or 6 minutes, the pace slows down a little bit, defense gets a lot tighter. Usually guys aren't shooting that much better, but for some reason, that guy, you expect every single shot he throws up to go in. So that's just how they've won games in the playoffs so far, is by not being the better team for 3.5 quarters, and then them having a golden horseshoe up their rear end, and that golden horseshoe on, in the middle of it, having Jalen Brunson's name etched into it. But if you're a Celtics fan, you're like, okay, they're not missing 45 threes.
Right. That's not going to happen again.
There's no way.
With that being said, the other NBA playoff game last night, Denver somehow pulled it out from OKC. Now, here's the problem. And Elijah, maybe if you were not assigned to come in this early in the morning, maybe you would have seen that game. But it's very difficult to watch the late West Coast game knowing that you got a 6 o'clock standing appointment.
We're getting up
because
early.
It's just a difficult task because you're watching the game, you're watching your clock, you're calculating things. The game was really good. I didn't make it. So I tried to wake up this morning, and we were kind of catching up and seeing what happened. I saw the score. Then not just the score, but then you see how the score ends up happening. Great game.
Fantastic game. And like Nikola Jokic doing what that man does. I mean, 42 points, 22 rebounds, 6 assists. Like that guy, he's the best offensive basketball player on the planet.
Yeah, you don't want anything more out of these games. I've been trying to convince folks like, hey, NBA playoffs to start, you need to. This is fun. Jokic does that.
Fun.
SGA almost puts up a 38-point triple-double last night. So the stars are performing. It's going to be great. We'll come back and talk a little bit more NBA playoffs. But none of that's important. None of that's the thing. Because yesterday, and here's the most important thing of the day, Jen. Elijah, you and Jay were the news story for the local media.
We became the news story.
You became the news story, whether you knew or not. You became the news story. And yesterday, on the post game with Jay and Elijah from 3 to 6, if you don't listen, you need to join. They had Coach Paul Maneri on the show for his standing appointment. And with all of the news swirling around, I'm glad he showed up.
Yep, I'm very, very glad he joined us.
A man's man. He showed up. He did join. And he made a pretty definitive, declarative proclamation. What'd he say?
He said, I'm not leaving. He said, I'm going nowhere. He said, I know people are talking about my job and what's happening this year. I understand the frustration, but ultimately, like he got around to, I'm not going anywhere. I'm dedicated to turning this ship around, much to the chagrin of a lot of Gamecock baseball fans. But look, he sounds like a guy, Preston, who has won a lot in his career, who has coached a lot of baseball, who has forgotten more baseball than I may ever learn in my lifetime. And it sounds like a guy who, in his entire decade of career, has never had a season like this one. And he'll be damned if he goes out that way. Yeah. That's kind of, a lot of times this year when he's joined us, he has sound defeated. He does sound very discouraged, and at times you could even say that he's at a loss for words or explanation. Even yesterday, I think we got in about halfway the interview, and he goes, I know I'm saying, take it one game at a time a lot, but I don't know what else there is, to say about this season. I think he has been genuinely baffled as to how this thing has gone on. And a guy like that, when you know that much about the game and you've experienced that much and you've won that much at a high level, I know there's no way he wants to go out in a season where he could potentially go 5-25 in conference play and have a team as bad as this one has been this year be the final chapter of his coaching book.
Well, kudos to y'all.
They found the perfect segue to go in there and ask the question if he's just had any discussions about his future and what that may look like. And I mean, his response was pretty definitive that he's not going anywhere. So that tells South Carolina fans one of two things. Paul Maneri's your head baseball coach next year, or if he's not the head coach next year, it's not his decision. And that's one thing a lot of people have talked about, whether you look in, Twitter comments, people that have hit me up, people I know have hit you guys up, people that are on our text line. A lot of them are asking, would Paul just decide to step down? The answer to that is no. So if he's not the head baseball coach next year, it's not his decision. And as we all know, there's a lot that's going to have to go into that.
And I think I understood that if he would make the decision, I think he has to pay back something with his contract. So I don't think he's just going to give up the ship, but I do, like what you said, he is a very successful coach, and I sure can't imagine this is how his legacy ends. Like, I have a feeling that we may see a whole bunch. And so I'm hopeful I know everybody's down right now, but I'm very hopeful because I think he needs to financially. Everybody needs him to stay.
We all need this to work.
The university would have to pay a lot of money to send him off. So I think maybe let's hope.
We all need this to work. So when we come back, we'll hear from Paul Maneri on the post game show, and we'll hear exactly what he has to say. We can't say it for him. Y'all got it out of him. When we come back, we'll hear from Coach Maneri saying that he is staying. This is the early game.
The eager anticipation of the music. Okay, so as far as accidents are concerned this morning, one to make you aware of Van Boekelen Street at Garner's Ferry Road. So be cautious in that area if you would. One more nice day of weather, 82 for the high today, mostly sunny skies. Then we have chances for showers really for about the next week. 76 tomorrow, 83 Thursday, 79 on Friday. And again, just those chances of rain on a daily basis. Not that we're going to have complete washouts, but you understand. So one more day of just solid sunshine today, 82. Right now, though, grab a jacket. It's 54.
Welcome back into the early game. It's Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, and we have our player in the post, tall man, Elijah Campbell.
That's my brother-in-law's last name, Tallman.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
So he's a tall man, not a big man. He's not playing with his back to the basket.
Right.
No, he's about 6'5", and so my nephews are about that tall and all that. My sister is shorter than I am, so that was a really fun wedding because like all of his friends were 6'8", and Jack Sikma. Basketball player?
Yeah.
Okay, they are first cousins.
Gotcha.
My brother-in-law and he, so...
NBA Hall of Famer, Jack Sikma.
Yeah, they got to go to the Hall of Fame ceremony a couple of years ago. My sister and brother-in-law did. So that was kind of fun to see some of the pictures of who they took pictures with and stuff. But Jack still comes to town. I mean, little town just outside my little town. But anyway, there's my little family story. But yeah, their last name is Tallman, and it kind of makes sense.
There we go.
Yeah.
So
I wonder how they got that last name.
Yeah, I know.
How that surname ended up being a
Tallman, all of them.
Exactly.
They're all Tallman.
Give him the last name. So we're here with Elijah Campbell, and I guess for the last 2 weeks, the post-game show has been making the Columbia community, Gamecock community, sort of light up. First, it was with Coach Maneri saying that maybe he underestimated the SEC play, in which yesterday you gave him a chance to maybe clarify that, and I don't know if he actually clarified that, but we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
But most importantly, yesterday on you all's show, you made a statement. He made a definitive, declarative statement about the future for next year, and we're going to get to that in a second. But before we do that, how has it been interviewing him as the year has sort of gone along?
Man, it's quite the experience because you start off, there's a whole lot of, he was very optimistic, even like in the non-conference slate, because they were winning games in the non-conference. They weren't dropping any of these non-conference series or midday or midweek games against really low-level Division I teams. So you get to the point where he's like, hey, we're winning the baseball games, and we're figuring out a rotation, and that kind of devolves as the year goes on to where I think he's just run out of answers for things that have happened because I think he's been so blindsided about how difficult coaching in the SEC was, which is why when last week he said he might have underestimated the SEC, I believed him because he sounds like somebody who didn't realize, pitchers in the SEC now, their fastballs, some of them, your high-end ones, they're topping out at 98. And a lot of the Friday starters you face in this league are hitting 95, 96 with regularity, right? And if you go out there throwing a pitcher that's, topping out at 91, 92, you're automatically at a disadvantage from a velocity standpoint. I think as the further they got into the SEC this season and the top level competition, I think maybe he realized I don't have the horses to run this race, and there's really not much I can do. And of course, he's not going to throw his players under the bus. It's not what you should do. But I think he's realized just how much the game has changed over the course of just this year. And it sounds like when we talk to him, it's a man who was digging deep as humanly possible, not just for answers, but for explanations as to how this has happened in the manner in which it has. Because, look, there's the Bill Parcells saying you are what your record says you are. But yesterday, Jay and we broke down the numbers from a pitching standpoint specifically, and the close game numbers, because usually if you're a team that's 5-19 in SEC play and you've got a roster that you feel good about, you might have some bad luck baked in there. You might lose some one-run games, right? Like the baseball nerds will call that your Pythagorean win-loss, right? If you if you lose a lot more one-run games than you win, like I'm a lifelong Cincinnati Reds fan. That was a team last year that lost the league lead in one-run games. If that luck changes, they go from not playing in the playoffs to at least playing in a wild card series, right? So, but like the other numbers suggest, they were better than what their record says they are. But this Gamecock team at the record right now, 5-19 SEC play, the numbers actually indicate they are worse than what that record is because they have a winning record in one-run games. They have a winning record in two-run games. They have a winning record, Preston, in three-run games. But they've been blown out in so many games that it doesn't matter. Their earned run average is north of 9 in the last 3 innings of games alone. If you just shortened every SEC game to the last 3 innings of each game, whether it be innings 7, 8, 9 for a normal 9-inning game, or 5, 6, and 7 for one of the 7-inning run rules you suffered, or even the innings 8, 9, and 10 in the extra inning game you played against Texas A&M. If you just take the earned run average from those final 3 innings of each game, it's north of 9.5. Like, you're worse than what your record says you are.
That would be not a recipe for winning.
No, at all. At all. You're losing games in the last 3 innings alone. That doesn't account for the previous 6.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like they can win. Well, again, y'all had him. Kudos. He didn't flake out. He didn't act like he had something else to do. He stood up. He's been accountable, and he's had these conversations. Yesterday, y'all had the conversation with him. You slid in there, and you asked him a question. He's definitive. Jen, can we hear clip 3 here? Coach Maneri essentially stating about what he thinks his future is for the next year.
Well, you just got to take it one day at a time. It's I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'm totally committed to getting this program back on track and competing for championships, as you mentioned. That's why we came here. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there's a reason that there's a coaching change, and you inherit a situation. You do the very best that you can. I love the kids. They're giving me everything they got. And we're gonna, like I said, recruit like crazy and hopefully put a better team out there next year. We need to get some hard throwing pitchers, and we need to get some guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, because that's what wins in this league. And if you look at the conference statistics, we're way down there in striking out batters, and we're way down there in hitting home runs. And those are the things we need to address, and we are addressing them. But as far as my status, there's no conversations about anything. I came here to do a job. I know it doesn't look like we're making progress to most people. I understand that, but probably to expect that we were going to win the national championship my first year here might be a little bit, optimistic, so to speak. But we're working hard every day to build for the future, and I'm totally committed to the University of South Carolina. Despite the conference record, I've loved my time here, and I really love the kids on the team. They're trying their very best, and some days it doesn't match up against who we're playing, but they're giving me everything they've got, and like I said, the coaches are giving them everything they have. So it may not satisfy a fan base, and I totally understand that, but the best we can do is all we can do, and that's what we're doing right now.
It's pretty definitive, pretty declarative.
Not going anywhere.
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not leaving. If there's rumors, there's smoke around in the city, message boards are lighting up, whatever the case, that's not at least what I envision my future to be. Now, you brought up in the first segment that who knows what the new athletic director sees his future as, or wherever the conversations may go. There are some holdups there. But I do think it was reassuring to hear at least we can move that part of the equation off the table.
Yep. Because
there was 2 things that were happening. Will they want to bring him back? Does he want to come back? Because we can't ignore the idea that the man came out of retirement. And at some point when you come out of retirement, he might be looking – I'm sure there was several points this season where he looking around and was like, I don't know if I want this.
Oh, when you're giving up 11 runs in the top of the 9th inning against a Florida team that has a losing record in SEC play, and you're getting beat like that. I think Florida probably has a winning record now. I think they've gone a little bit of a streak here, and it helps to come here and play, I guess. But, you're in the middle of that 11-run ninth inning. I'm sure he probably was in the dugout. Human nature would tell me that you're in that dugout thinking, man, speaking of Florida, I could be home in Florida. Right. I could be taking care of the lawn. I could be sitting on a beach. I could be enjoying a beer on this lovely, lovely hot spring day. There's a lot of things I could be doing right now other than getting my tail kicked up and down this field right now and having to suffer through what's going on this weekend. I'm sure that thought has absolutely had to enter his mind. He may never admit that because you don't. Right. Competitors would never admit that. But the human being in all of us would absolutely be thinking, what can I be doing? And we've all been doing something, like work obligation, where we're thinking, man, you know what sounds a lot more fun? Being at home and doing quite literally anything else. Mm-hmm. And I think that has gone into through his head. It has to. That human nature just suggests that it would. But when you've won as much as he has, and you are as prideful in your career, then you have that in you. That's like that dog in you. That's still like, I'm not going out like this.
Yeah,
I'm
and
too good of a coach to go out like this.
That's the one. Maybe if it was just up to him and he was fine with it, he might be like, all right, you know what? But I have a hunch that this is not how he wants his legacy to end. When they have conversations, and sometimes this happens, you think about maybe professional players when they go and play for that fifth team, and you're like, oh yeah, that actually didn't happen.
Ichiro as a Marlin, yes. Jerry Rice as a Seahawk.
That's exactly.
Eddie George as a Dallas Cowboy.
We just act like never happened, right? We just block it out of our memory. But that's not how it kind of works for coaches, because you always point and be like, he was great, but man, that last year at South Carolina. And he does not want his legacy to end off on that note. And then, so you talked about that, and I'm thinking we're going to get into this a little bit more tomorrow. There's some very clear, distinct parallels between Paul Mainieri and Lou Holtz as far as the situation at South Carolina. But yes, definitive, declarative statement. I'm not going anywhere. He made it on your show. Congratulations. You made news.
We got newspapers again. We got in newspapers again. Usually in journalism school, I was told, if you become the story, that's a bad thing.
Yeah.
But in this industry, if somebody says something that is newsworthy on your show, that is when being in the news can benefit you.
Well, we'll move the news forward because this is listicle season. People are making drafts, mock drafts. We've already had one mock draft earlier. We're going to come back, and we'll have another mock draft. Tommy Shea makes his pick. Would not talk mock drafts unless, obviously, there were Gamecocks in there very high. This is the early game.
They do say perfection is a journey. Well, our journey led us to Carolina Stone Craftsman when we were working on updating a couple of bathrooms that needed some countertops. And Carolina Stone Craftsman, they're just outside Columbia in Chapin. Very impressed with their showroom the first time we went there. It's quite impressive, I have to say. And they're finishing up an outdoor showroom about some of their hardscapes and such, and that's something else that you will want to go visit. But there was so much to choose from. We were trying to decide maybe what would be best in each of the bathrooms, and ended up in one bathroom. We discovered the leathered side of granite, and we ended up using that and absolutely love it, but would not have even thought about that without them kind of explaining some of that process. So if you are in the market for countertops for your kitchen or bath, I encourage you to reach out to Carolina Stone Craftsman. They are family owned and operated. Make sure to tell them Jen Jensen sent you. They're just beyond Columbia in Chapin, and I promise you, they are beyond your expectations. They're Carolina Stone Craftsman. Visit them online.com. Van Vokeland Street at Garner's Ferry Road. Still working that earlier tie-up. Sunny day today, 82 for the high, and then we get into a series of about a week where we have chances for showers each and every day. Your high tomorrow, 76, 83 on Thursday, 79 on Friday. But you might want to grab a jacket just to start your morning. It's a little bit cooler. It's 54 right now on 107.5 The Game. In our first pick of the morning show, we take Elijah Campbell.
Woo! I already got a hat on, but it's backwards. I got to put on my draft
his morning
cap.
show hat.
I
didn't mean to cut you over there.
Got to dap up my family. I'm going to cry a little bit.
With the number 4 pick in the Todd McShay, way too early, very obnoxious, absolutely inaccurate, bloviating hot take NFL draft, we have number 4, Lenoris Sellers from the University of South Carolina.
All right. South Florence's finest.
South Florence's finest. Listen, man, this is happening. We did a mock draft. By the way, welcome in Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Elijah Campbell joining us this morning. This is happening. Steam is starting to pick up. As you said, the hype train is starting to roll. We've done 2 separate mock drafts where one had him the second pick to the New York Jets. This one has him number 4 to the Los Angeles Rams. And what happens with these mock drafts is that if Todd McShay says something, everybody else starts to say it. Everybody else starts to pay attention. Everybody else starts to figure out, who's that? If they did not know who Lenoris Sellers was, when his name is up that high on the board, people are going to start paying attention now. So if it was our little secret, it's out now.
It's not anymore.
It's not our secret anymore. People will be paying attention to not only the program, but they'll be paying attention to Lenoris this year.
Yeah. I mean, Todd McShay, when he does a lot of these mocks, a lot of it's his individual evaluation of the tape and the numbers and everything that goes into ranking prospects, but a lot of it's what they hear. I mean, these guys are so locked in. If you remember, Todd McShay, before the draft started this year, was saying on his podcast that, hey, I heard Shedeur didn't interview very well. I know the Giants in particular were not very pleased with the interaction and that they thought he came unprepared. Paraphrasing here, the conversation with him and Brian Dable became a little combative at one point. And he goes, I wouldn't be surprised to see him fall out of the first round. He's really the only person that was saying that type of stuff. But, obviously he got that from somebody that was in the room, in that organization. And sure enough, he becomes the story by dropping to the 5th round. And no one saw that coming. But, there were some warning signs because he gets that information from somebody. So I'm guaranteeing you right now, when he's talking to other teams about, hey, you might have a quarterback need in the next year. This is a deeper quarterback class, or at least a quarterback class with some higher upside in the first 2 or 3 prospects that you look at. I guarantee you he's getting a lot of feedback saying, look, we got an eye on that Sellers kid in South Carolina. Guarantee it.
Well, Jen, let's go. This is clip 22. Let's hear McShay give his early initial evaluation of Lenoris.
Why aren't people talking about Lenore Sellers?
You know, I love him. When you see him at his best, he's unstoppable. I mean, he's a great runner when he takes off, strong arm, built well can handle the physical beating. He's going to take a quarterback and shake off some sacks, moves around really well. Some decision-making needs to be better. He misses on some throws. I thought there were some drops that hurt him last year, too, though.
Yeah.
Good player. I mean, again, a guy I think has got a really good chance to be in the mix.
I'm keeping a close eye on this guy this year.
Yeah.
Because his best tape is better than everybody else's best tape. That includes Garrett Nussmeier, and Garrett Nussmeier's best tape is pretty damn good. That includes Drew Aller, who I'm not quite as high on as everybody else seems to be. It's better than Cade Klubnik's, but this guy's best tape is better than everybody else's. I love when things break down, bullets are flying. Yes, the decision-making sometimes can be erratic. Footwork's got to improve and be more consistent. But when things break down and get crazy, that's when some of his special comes out.
Yeah.
So that's Tommy Shea giving glowing praise for what he thinks, and more importantly, what you said, also what he's hearing. Mm-hmm. He's not just speaking singularly for himself. It's what he sees, what he hears for Norris. And I think that was an interesting comment of saying, hey, there's a pretty strong quarterback class, stronger than this past year's draft. But amongst them, he's at the top. The only person he did not mention was Arch Manning. Mm-hmm. And me personally, I still think there's something to be desired there. We'll see.
I need a larger sample size. Yes. I'm a sample size freak.
We'll see how that goes. I need to
have a large sample size. Realistically, who have we seen him start against that is menacing?
Have not.
I expect him to beat Louisiana Monroe.
We saw when he got in there against Georgia was not great.
No.
So we've seen Lenoris in these high-pressure situations, and what we know is this. Also, we can take any of the off-the-field stuff off the table, barring anything wild happens. He's going to interview well. He's going to go in there. They're going to fall in love with him. So we get all of that stuff. There's a couple of things he needs to do as a quarterback, mainly improving his accuracy in passing. But all of these other factors, they're in place for him to really be a very high-level draft pick when we talk about the draft next year.
Because there's so much about him you don't have to coach. Like, the athleticism is something you can't just teach somebody, right? The ability to know where everybody's at when a play breaks down isn't something you can just teach somebody once they get to the NFL. And I think my favorite part about that clip, too, is the observation that whenever the bullets start flying and a play breaks down, he doesn't panic and he knows exactly where to go. And I think that Clemson game was really the epitome of that. I mean, it was not a banner day for the South Carolina offensive line. They really struggled against Clemson's defensive front in that game. But I remember being in that stadium, Preston, that first play, that first drop back, where immediately the crowd gets up. They think it's a sack, and because it should be. Because there's 3 defensive players that have a hand on Lenore Sellers. And he breaks out of that crowd and then goes for 20-something yards on that first play? When I saw him escape that pocket, it's one of those things, you watch sports long enough, you run out of things that become unbelievable to you. And sitting there in person, I think my jaw hit the desk because I couldn't fathom what my brain was processing right in front of me that he escaped out of that pocket. And the only thing I could think of is how? How do you break out of that? And that's that type of it factor that you can't really coach, and that NFL scouts and coaches are going to see on that tape and are just absolutely going to drool over, because how many quarterbacks in the NFL, pocket breaks down like that, that's the play. That's it. Snaps over, reps over, plays over. It's 2nd and 18 now. There's that high level right there where a player that can take what the nerds would consider an expected loss of yardage and turn it into a gain of 20. There's just not, as good as this quarterback class is, Drew Aller isn't doing that. Garrett Nussmeier's not doing that. Arch Manning hasn't proven he can do that against teams that can tackle. I mean, yeah, like Mississippi State and Louisiana Monroe is one thing. Are you doing that against a team like Clemson?
Wait a second, Jen. I believe a pick is in. I believe we have a pick. Can we get the draft timer? Well, right behind at number 5, the Cleveland Browns select.
Oh, not the Browns.
Cade Klubnik.
Oh, the Browns. Oh, I'm sorry, Cade. I'm sorry.
So according to Todd McShay's mock draft, Lenore Sullivan goes number 4 to the Los Angeles Rams, and right behind him, Cade Klubnik goes number 5 to the Cleveland Browns.
By the time we have the draft next year, how many quarterbacks do you think the Browns will have?
Well, here's what's interesting about this. In both mock drafts that we've done, the Cleveland Browns have selected a quarterback.
They know there are other positions you can draft,
I was
right?
gonna say.
Has somebody informed them that you can take other players?
So McShay, I forget who the other mock draft was, but McShay and another industry leader have both said, "Oh yeah, Cleveland, you're going to need a quarterback next year. We know you have 6 this year, and you just selected 2 with this last draft. You're probably going to need another one."
How can teams be so bad?
What would be more Cleveland Browners to be like, yeah, we're going to try it again. Re-rack them. You have that, that jersey that you have with all
that's
the
got
Browns.
all those quarterbacks. I want to one time, without the help of the internet, I want to see how many Cleveland Brown starting quarterbacks in my lifetime I can reel off just from memory.
Oh wow,
It's a large sample
I
size.
would say, and that would be a large number.
Going back to
so
sample size,
it'd be impressive.
You have a good shot of getting a solid number.
I could probably break 15, 15 plus.
So on Todd McShay's mock draft, way too early mock draft, Lenore Sellers to the number 4 to the Los Angeles Rams, and right behind him, Cade Klubnik to the Cleveland Browns. And there's some more interesting things in this draft pick. Clemson fans, if you're listening, we appreciate you. I'm not sure what you're doing here, but
we're always happy to have you.
Glad you're here. Some good news for you in this mock draft, and also there's some more good news for South Carolina fans. Also, we'll come back to that. But when we come back, we have the debut of a new game. The game is called
Preston or Reston.
Our guy Elijah Campbell explained it to us. This is the early game. Preston here for Cato's Power Equipment. Cato's Power Equipment has been family-owned and serving the Midlands since 1983. It has helped everyone from weekend warriors to professional landscapers. That's over 40 years. And third-generation owner Ben Cato provides top-notch service, great deals, and the mom-and-pop values that you love. Ben is determined to raise the standards of sales, service, and retail. At Cato's, they are proud to offer a wide selection of new and pre-owned mowers, tractors, and more. So if you're ready to invest in something new, the friendly team is there to make the process easy, help you choose the right equipment, find financing options, and keep your gear running strong with expert service and parts. So swing by Cato's Power Equipment today or call us at 803-254-3711. That's 803-254-3711.
Preston Thorne, how do you hear this and not get motivated already to play a game?
I'm ready to go.
Not to sound like Jigsaw or anything, but would you like to play a game?
Let's do it.
All right.
That's a good one.
This is a lot less ominous
All right.
than anything you saw
I'm ready.
in the Saw
I'm ready.
movies.
I'm always up
All
for
right.
a game. Here we go.
We are debuting a game. For those who listen to the post-game show, we have Jay or Nay, right? Where I give Jay a sports take. And if it's a Jay take, he goes with Jay. And if it's not a Jay take, he goes with Nay. Pretty self-explanatory.
Okay, good. Now how would you reverse it for Elijah?
Oh, I've been struggling. I've been
Okay, so
struggling.
that's why it's still Jay or Nay?
Exactly. Unfortunately, my name, not a lot of stuff that rhymes with it.
Okay.
We'll have to get to the
I
direct
got
drawing
it. I
board.
got it.
Oh.
And I don't.
Okay. Let's hear it.
Eli or Deni.
Oh, that's
God,
good.
That's great.
I don't know if you go by Eli though. Does it?
I
anywhere?
don't, but I will for the bit.
Okay.
I will for the bit.
For the
I'll
bit.
do
I
anything
said
for the bit.
Elijah or duh, but I guess that's,
See, that's a good one too.
That's why brainstorming works.
Yeah,
That
exactly.
is why brainstorming
All right, I'm
works.
sorry.
I hit the
Resume.
wall for that one. But this is great. Preston or Reston? Is this a Preston take, or is this one that we need to rest
Okay.
till we see further evidence to completely make you feel better about it?
Okay.
So we'll start. Preston or Reston? The take of the Thunder will lose the series versus the Nuggets because they have one more, what I like to call a rite of passage series left in them. It's a very young team, and sometimes you got to get G-checked before you can advance further in the playoffs.
Preston. This is a Preston take.
Ooh.
I think I'm 100%. I'm 100% with this. I'm in love with Jokic, the way he plays. The Brody is back.
He
and
is.
He's giving us the whole Russell Westbrook experience. OKC needs to go through it one more time.
I think so too. I mean, and I hate saying that with a team that won 68 games in the regular season. Like they most undercovered 68 win team maybe in the history of the NBA.
Yeah.
Because they have been great. But the only thing I don't think people realize about Nikola Jokic, and I'm not even being hyperbolic when I say this, he's one of the 5 best offensive basketball players to ever play this game.
For sure.
Because right now on ESPN2, they have Unsportsmanlike on ESPN Radio, and they're asking the question, is Nikola Jokic actually underrated?
2-time MVP could possibly be underrated.
I think, I mean, if you don't have him in that conversation,
Remember how you said you check the baseball statistics and they're actually worse than what their bad record is? Well, he's actually better than what his great statistics are.
I've never seen a player whose team is almost 25 points worse per 100 possessions when he is off the floor.
All right, I like this.
Tells you a lot.
Preston.
All right, Preston or Reston? The Celtics should still feel good about winning this series in 6 games or less.
Preston, you cannot miss 45 three-pointers and only lose by 3 points. The Knicks are in trouble.
I think they're in trouble.
Knicks are in trouble.
I could see the Celtics still winning this thing in 5.
Give me Preston. Even though I do not like the Celtics. They're so boring.
I'm a Laker fan.
They're so well. You got that, but they're just so
hate them.
boring to me, man. Tatum is just like a perfect Ken doll of a player. He does everything right.
Doll of a player.
They're extremely boring. They're very good, but boring. I don't like the Celtics.
Preston or Reston? Lenora Sellers has the highest upside of any player in next year's draft.
Preston.
Okay.
Give me Preston.
okay.
I've been on this train pretty early. I remember last year I said he was better than Jalen Milroe. I got on that one early. I am very excited about Lenoris. And again, the Indianapolis Colts picked Anthony Richardson number 3. So why is it not possible that Lenora Sellers could go top 5 or higher?
Yeah.
Give me a Preston.
Richardson drafted solely on upside.
Exactly.
Like that was all he was drafted on was upside because the accuracy numbers absolutely were not there when he was in college. Preston or Reston? The Missouri baseball team will lose their last 6 SEC games to complete the most beautiful season in college baseball. That is going 0-30 in SEC play. Their 2 series remaining are at Texas A&M and home against Mississippi State.
Reston.
Reston, okay.
Reston. The game of baseball will provide them with something. They will provide them with something. They've gone this long. The baseball gods will look at them and say, here is at least a win.
Now, the Missouri thing is interesting because I was looking at their schedule, and if you look at their promotions at the Mississippi State game, or series all at home, and on that Thursday, the first game of the series, they have a whiteout, which is really ironic because, A, I don't think there's going to be enough people there to necessitate having any type of themed shirt promotion. I don't know if you can get all dozens in attendance to wear the same thing. And wouldn't it be more apropos for them to have a blackout instead of a whiteout because it is more of like getting this season over with?
That's a solid one. I'm gonna go with resting. I'm gonna go with resting on that, but we're gonna come back to this one. All right, this is the early game. Or monitoring your security system from your cell phone, Integrated Media is the company that you need to call. So call Nathan and Michael at 803-948-8327. That's 803-948-8327. Or you can reach them online at integratedmediainc.com.
Still working that earlier tie-up, Van Boakland Street at Garner's Ferry Road. 82, that's going to be our high today under sunny skies. That'll probably be the last of it of full sunshine for about a week or so because we're going to be in a pattern of showers off and on throughout about the next week. 76 will be our high tomorrow. 83 on Thursday, 79 on Friday. Just chances, not total washouts, but just chances each and every day to see some shower activity. A little bit cooler to start your morning. Maybe a jacket might be needed just to get you started. It's 54 right now on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Elijah Campbell. We will re-rack Preston arresting at the end of the hour. We'll come back to that. We have some more takes that we want to get off. Unfortunately, our guy J.C. Sherbert is on the injured list today.
Late scratch
on the injured list today. He tried to go in true football senses. Maybe does he have a hip? Does he have he has a lower body, or upper body, or something? How would we list him on the injury list?
How do you list a fever?
I know back in 2020 and 2021, long time ago, if we can remember that far, of players being ruled out for non-COVID illness, we can maybe list it that way.
I like it.
Or if it's the NHL, which has the most vague injury reports, because all you're required to do is say if somebody has an upper or lower body injury. That's all you're required to put on an injury report. You could have like a compound fracture in your leg, and you'll just be out for season, lower body.
Lower body.
That's all they'll put. All they'll put, and it won't say, you know. Sometimes it won't say how long. Like, you'll watch somebody get hurt, and you're like, oh, there's no way that guy's coming back. I saw a helmet go into like thigh right there, and something bad, and get carted off, and it's like, oh, he's day to day with a lower body injury. I'm like, brother, I don't think it's day to day. I don't think it's day to day.
So, JC, hope you get better. We'll see you. We'll get back to you next week. But the big news of the day is Paul Maneri. And if you're just tuning in, Elijah Campbell is on the post-game show with Jay Phillips every day. So if you're not listening to the radio, then make sure you tune in to them so you can hear some more of these fire takes and hear some of this. Or you might hear News Break, where Paul Maneri was scheduled for his regularly scheduled visit, where he comes on with you all every Monday.
5:15.
5:15 every morning. The light in his eyes, you've seen it dimming over as the season has gone on.
I can tell when I call him to get him on the show, increasingly it has become less enthusiastic.
At first he picked up on first ring, and now it's like second ring,
a little bit.
third ring.
He's probably having the thoughts in his head. He goes, this bleeping guy again.
So Elijah and Jay were in this situation yesterday where they have a regularly scheduled appointment with Coach Maneri. There's obviously conversations that are floating around the message boards, floating around social media, floating around the water cooler, wherever it is. Talk is happening about Gamecock baseball after the abysmal weekend that they had this weekend. And to give him credit, he showed up.
He did.
Took his medicine. And you all asked him the question that everybody was trying to figure out. And you were asking him essentially, what's up? Where do you see yourself going? Before we hear from Paul and where he answered the question, did you get a sense that he knew this question was coming?
I think so. I think Paul's been around long enough, and I think if there's anything that could prepare him for what this season is, I think it's him being in Baton Rouge for as long as he was, where they are as equally baseball crazy as we are here, and that there is such an emphasis on college baseball. I think that part helped him go into this where he's expecting to be asked that question, whereas someone like Mark Kingston, who I thought, was good with us, and I always enjoyed having Mark on. Mark's especially if you get talking about rock and roll, Mark will talk with you all day about it. But I don't know if he would have been as prepared to answer something like that, just because you haven't been in a college baseball market like this, where there is a full-on investment from early February all the way
about essentially answering the question. What's where you see yourself in the next year or two?
One day at a time. I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'm totally committed to getting this program back on track and competing for championships, as you mentioned. That's why we came here. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there's a reason that there's a coaching change, and you inherit a situation. You do the very best that you can. I love the kids. They're giving me everything they got. And we're gonna, like I said, recruit like crazy and hopefully put a better team out there next year. We need to get some hard throwing pitchers, and we need to get some guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, because that's what wins in this league. And if you look at the conference statistics, we're way down there in striking out batters, and we're way down there in hitting home runs. And those are the things we need to address, and we are addressing them. But as far as my status, there's no conversations about anything. I came here to do a job. I know it doesn't look like we're making progress to most people. I understand that, but probably to expect that we were going to win the national championship my first year here might be a little bit, optimistic, so to speak. But we're working hard every day to build for the future, and I'm totally committed to the University of South Carolina. Despite the conference record, I've loved my time here, and I really love the kids on the team. They're trying their very best, and some days it doesn't match up against who we're playing, but they're giving me everything they've got, and like I said, the coaches are giving them everything they have. So it may not satisfy a fan base, and I totally understand that, but the best we can do is all we can do, and that's what we're doing right now.
I like that statement. The best we can do is all we can do. That's what we're doing right now. This is what you get. That is a definitive statement. And what that statement does for me, at least, is take one part of the equation off the table, because we were trying to figure out, hey, this guy just came out of retirement. He is up there in age. Maybe he doesn't want to do this anymore. And now I think that was a fair, logical conclusion that you might have been able to come to. But with that statement just now, we can take that off the table. As you stated, that doesn't necessarily mean that he will be back next year, because there's other parts of this equation. But we know from his side, at least, that he's back next year, right?
Oh, absolutely. This kind of reminds me of, have you ever seen the movie Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story? Hilarious movie, right? John C. Reilly's a musician, up and coming. And, you know, he's innocent, small town guy. And Tim Meadows plays the bad influence, and he keeps continuously walking in on Tim Meadows doing, you know, various substances that are illegal and things that kids should say no to. And he goes, "This is insert drug here, Dewey. You want no part of this mess." And I'm FCC proofing this statement. And then he describes all of it. And Dewey goes, "You know what? I think I do want to try some of that. This is South Carolina baseball, Paul. You don't want no part of this." And Paul's like, "You know, I think I do want part of this." There is a stopping him. So really, the only thing that would stop him is if somebody else intervened and said, "No, you are not doing this, Dewey.
Right.
You have been removed." I think that absolutely clears that way right there. Where, look, if he is not, for some reason, not the head baseball coach at South Carolina next year, it is not Paul Mainieri's decision.
Yeah, based on what he said yesterday on the show. Could things change? Who knows? We'll see. We'll come back to that a little bit later. But yesterday, Shane Beamer was at the Welcome Home event down in my hometown, down in Somerville, and he had some more interesting things to say than usual, I think. Mainly talking about what I thought the most interesting thing is, hey, NCAA, what are you doing? I feel like this is a reoccurring question. You could just post that anywhere.
Evergreen.
And you would always have an answer to that. When we come back, we'll talk about the hang up with the NCAA and transfer and eligibility. This is the early game.
Easy for me to say. Let's try again. Take 2. Van Boekelen Street and Garnish Ferry Road, that has been cleared, so good news there. And traffic flow should be getting back to normal. Kittywake at Two Notch Road do have a report of an accident in that area. Sunny and 82 today. No rain in the forecast for today. That does change tomorrow. And really for about the next week, we'll just have days where it'll be possible to see a few showers. Tomorrow's high 76, Thursday 83. A little bit cooler start to your morning, 54 right now on the early game.
Welcome back into the early games. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, our guy, tall man, Elijah Campbell joining us in studio today. We will get back into the pulmonary conversation because it was the big thing that happened yesterday and it broke on your show. So it's kind of perfect that we have you all in today. But yesterday, Shane Beamer and Lamont Paris were down in my hometown, down in the Ville, having the welcome home meeting. And if you're not familiar with the welcome home meetings, those are the situations where the coaches get up and everybody goes around and we eat, barbecue, talk, maybe give a little prognostics of what the season is going to be. Usually not too much comes out of these things. Now, I prefer the old days when they used to have these things and kind of very enclosed and coaches would say some maybe inflammatory things. You might hear some rumors about what they said.
Oh, that's the Steve Spurrier special right
exactly.
there. That's the Steve Spurrier
good old
special.
days, right?
He basically puts on a stand-up act.
Exactly.
So
it's not we don't quite do that anymore, but there are some things that are revealed. And Shane had a lot to say. Lamont had a lot to say, which we're not going to get to today. We'll probably get back to tomorrow when Bill returns. But Shane had a lot of things to say, and one of the things that he addressed is essentially, what do you know? The NCAA kicking the can down the road, having a situation in front of them and saying like, I don't know. We'll deal with it eventually, right?
Oh, that's, find somebody who loves you in life the way the NCAA loves procrastinating on anything that's actually important.
So the situation at hand is Rasul Faison, the running back, came in through the transfer portal from Utah State, I believe was his last stop. He's also a young fellow who has his college football passport stamped. He's been several locations. Can you name them all?
Oh, man, I can't.
Okay,
but I do know he is a U-Haul all-star.
He is. He has traveled, and he has been very well traveled. Well, his most recent stop is here at South Carolina. And quite honestly, it feels like, and I haven't heard anybody say this, but it feels as if they're waiting on Rasul to be RB1. That's what it feels like. Nobody said that. Nobody said that. There are other players in the room. Oscar Attaway, who was there last year. Jawarn Howell came in from South Carolina State. Matthew Fuller, I believe those are the three that are on scholarship. But it feels as if everybody's waiting on Rasul Faison. And the problem is the NCAA has not made a definitive, declarative statement on his eligibility. Also with that, we as fans, at least to my knowledge, we're not really sure what the issue is because we see people transferring all the time. Yeah. So I'm not quite sure do you have any idea what the issue is?
It might be for like an issue regarding the last year. I want to say there's the dispute comes from whether or not he's eligible for that fifth season.
Okay.
So I think there's a redshirt year. There's either a redshirt year or there was a junior college year.
That might be what it is.
And I think it might be a Pavia ruling type deal because in terms of FBS, he's only played at Utah State, and he played 13 games in 23, 12 games in 24. So that has to be the only hang up. But at the same time too, they feel comfortable enough to bring him in and to have him go through spring football. He went through practices. Saw the videos of him practicing. They feel really good and optimistic, but it's one of those things where, look, for the NCAA, reviewing this probably takes 10 minutes of discussion max. And if Diego Pavia is able to play, then you open the door for other guys who play junior college, if that's the case, to be able to play as well. am baffled as to what the hang-up
We've seen, we've seen more of these rulings popping up. Jen, let's hear from Shane Beam. I believe this clip number 11. Let's hear from Shane talking about at least what he's heard about Rasul's eligibility.
No, and it's getting frustrating, just to be completely frank. I understand the NCAA has a lot on their plate, Hale, but the fact that they've had everything that they needed from us since January, and we don't have an answer is frankly disappointing. We've given them everything they needed back in January. They asked for more. We gave them what they needed. They asked for more. We gave them what they needed. We've been in contact with other schools that he was at to get stuff from them that they needed. And, again, I know they have a lot on their plate, but the fact that we're now in the middle of May and we still don't have an answer, and we just went through a portal window where we didn't add a running back, but we don't have an answer on whether or not we're going to have, what would it be, 3 scholarship running backs on our team, or 4 or 5, whatever it is. And that's tough when you start talking about planning for 2025. So to answer your question, no, and it's getting frustrating.
Welcome to the NCAA. I believe several coaches around the country would have a similar conversation about, hey, man, you see yourself as the governing body. We submit all the information that we need, that you say you needed, and you just do not get back to us with any type of expediency. And if we were to do anything wrong, and this is crossing sports, like, I don't know, have some kids go to a basketball game in Madison Square Garden, we'll strike down on you with the wrath of 1,000 suns.
Poor Fordham. My
right?
God.
But if it's a team that's trying to do things the right way, go through the processes, they hold them at bay.
And the most frustrating part, and we can use an example even here in our own backyard in terms of the inconsistency at the speed in which the NCAA moves to approve eligibility or not. Miles Studi was granted his final year of eligibility last week. They submitted that paperwork I know when I talked to Miles in March after they got bounced from the SEC tournament against Arkansas, he told me they're already in the process, and they put in the paperwork about, maybe like a month or so after he got injured, or he was diagnosed with the blood clots and the deep vein thrombosis. And that would have been like what, February when they filed that paperwork, and we knew by April, right? This is one, they filed the paperwork for Rasul Faison, or they inquired about it in January, and it's May 6th, and we still have no word as to if he's eligible to play this season or not. How come you can get from the same school in a different sport who was playing in that sport actively during the season when they submitted the paperwork to lobby for that last year of eligibility for a waiver, because Miles played in enough games to where normally he would not get the extra year of eligibility because he played past what that threshold is. So you have to have a medical waiver. They were able to look at that medical waiver and kind of come to a consensus that he is allowed to have that last year of eligibility before Rasul Faison has any type of word to what or as to anything else he needs to do, or any type of final ruling on his eligibility. And that paperwork was submitted before Miles got hurt. That's the astonishing thing, is that I get it if there's like a backlog, right? There's so many things like companies all across, America have like an issue with backloading because a lot of places are shorter staffed. That's just something that happens in the workplace, right? Like, I know here there's things that I have to do that I've had to put on the back burner because there's other things that take priority. And I can understand just a backlog of work that you have to work through. But when one gets done before the other, so by the time that you filed Rasul's paperwork and asked for this year of eligibility, and another player a month after requests the exact same thing and get an answer significantly faster than the other one, that raises questions as to what the hell are you doing? What are you prioritizing? Because this seems pretty important. We just went through all of spring practice, and he has no word as a definitive word if he's going to play. The semester's over. There's no word as if they're going to let him play. We're about to go into the summer, which means every day that passes is the day that gets closer to the season. And whether or not Rasul Faison is eligible to play or not is something this team probably needs to know.
Yeah. And unfortunately, they don't have a track record of making these decisions. I was, as you were saying that, I was thinking about the wide receiver from North Carolina. Was that last year? Tez, I forget his last name, but they played that all the way up to the very last day, whether or not he was going to be. And unfortunately, we were on the side where we was like,
can you delay this as much as possible?
But
delay.
They delayed that as much as possible, even though all the facts were presented. And this is a situation for South Carolina. This is crucial because we just laid out the idea that there's only 3 running backs on scholarship. Me editorializing, Oscar Attaway and Matthew Fuller have not proven themselves to be a running RB1. They're solid pieces, solid change of paces. Maybe Juwan Howell has the potential, but he hasn't proven that either. Rasul Faison, at least it seems as if is penciled in as the guy that was going to be RB1.
Taking the lion's share of the carries. Yes.
And going into a season, you do not want to go into a season not figuring out what you're going to be doing at that position. And as Shane said, we just went through another portal cycle where if they knew what was happening, maybe they could have made some adjustments in that portal cycle. But because they're being held up, they weren't able to do that. And this is not a good spot for you to have your roster in. No. Remember last year we came into this season, we got the Rocket. We're good at running back. 2 years ago, we did not have a running back, and that situation didn't play out as well. So this is something that they're going to have to figure out, but they're handcuffed. They can't do anything until the NCAA gives them some sort of approval.
Yeah, and the Faison thing, too, in terms of just how this team's going to operate at running back, I mean, Rasul Faison did rush for 1,000 yards last year as the bell cow back at Utah State. I like what Oscar Attaway does as a change of pace back, but like if you look at Oscar's career, especially those last 2 years at North Texas where he was getting a lot of carries, he still never led the team in carries. At no point in his college career has he led a team in carries, whether it be, especially like his first year, he didn't get a ton of run at all, but he's an established, really good change of pace back. We don't know if Juwan Howell can take a lion's share of carries because in the 1 year that he started for an entire season at South Carolina State, he really didn't get those carries till the back end of the season. And there's a difference between rushing at the MEAC level and then rushing at the SEC level.
Especially with that number of carries.
Yeah, a significant different amount of carries. And we still don't know what Matthew Fuller is as an SEC running back. Again, small sample size alert. We just don't have much to work with there. Rasul Faison's the one running back on this roster who has, at any point in his career at the FBS level, led a team in carries and rushing yards. And you kind of need somebody that you can at least, take a majority of those carries. And he is so fast to the point, too. Like him and Oscar Attaway are just different runners. Your offense is going to operate differently based on who's in there and what blocking scheme you have to have for both those guys is because they have different skill sets.
Well, we'll keep an eye on that. There's no guarantees from the NCAA. They can't even quite figure out how they're going to get themselves this house settlement, which is why we have not talked a lot about it because by the time we talk about it, it changes. So that's put a pin in that. We'll come back to that. But coming back, I think we have another pick in Todd McShay's way too early, absolutely artificial, not accurate mock draft. This is the early game.
We have a report of an accident, I-20 westbound there at I-77. Also, Kitty Wake Drive at Two Notch Road, another to be mindful of. And as far as the forecast goes, it's going to be sunny today. 82 will be our high. Then we get into that pattern of chances for rain for about the next week. 76 will be the high tomorrow. 83 for Thursday, 79 on Friday. But as we mentioned before, a little bit cooler start to your morning, maybe a jacket or a sweater to get you going. It's 54 right now on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, our guy Elijah Campbell joining us this morning. We're having a lot of conversation. We've been talking. Obviously, the big deal for today is Pulmonary has announced or stated or declared, I don't know what the word is, that he's coming back, that he's here, that he's not going anywhere. And he made that proclamation on your show yesterday, correct?
Yeah,
He's not entering the transfer portal.
He is not entering the transfer portal.
Okay.
He is
Hit
not
us with that
entering the
Wolf of
portal.
Wall Street. I'm not leaving.
That's right. Yeah, I was looking for that clip yesterday. Come to find out, Wolf of Wall Street has some strong language. Who would have known?
I think maybe a record. I can't remember. I know the Big Lebowski had the record for a while. Glenn Ross has a high volume of F-bombs dropped in there too. But I think that one has the record.
Yeah, who would have thought? So yeah, we could not use that. So we'll get back to having that at the top of the 8 o'clock hour. But we've been also talking about Todd McShay, draft prognosticator. He has come out with his way too early, absolutely inaccurate, probably not going to be worth anything by the time the draft comes along next year, but he made it anyway, and so we will talk about it. Mock draft. And with that being said, we have a pick in. Maybe the first major surprise of this mock draft. The Tennessee Titans, select at pick number 11, University of South Carolina wide receiver, Nick Harbor.
Woo! All right. How about that? Considering how his career started, the first year and most of last year, that is a welcome sign for Gamecock fans. They believe that's the trajectory.
So Todd McShay has Nick Harbor being picked number 11th by the Tennessee Titans, which again does not necessarily bode well for the Cam Ward experiment that it's going to be going up. So if they're picking again early, probably wasn't great. Obviously, you're very familiar with that area and that town.
A totally functional franchise. Yes, a totally functional, non-problematic.
Yeah, but Nick Harbor being projected to be selected this high is very interesting to me. Now, obviously, this could be just a straight-up upside draft, like, hey, this guy's big, this guy's fast, he's going to have a great year this year. But I wonder what Todd McShay and crew have seen, have heard, that would make them even step out on a limb like this.
I think it's a lot of the improvement of his ball skills. I think one of the biggest issues I think he had when you're kind of adjusting to wide receiver at the college level, like obviously the routes you're going to run are a lot different. He didn't really play, my understanding, didn't play a ton of wide receiver in high school. It was a lot of tight end. And when you're that big, at the high school level, they're going to throw you at tight end. And you're going to get some matchups against linebackers that high school coaches are going to salivate over on the offensive side of the ball. But the routes are different. Tracking the ball is going to be different. And I know, he's talked about, his contacts and how much that helps him track the ball. I think his ball skills have just gotten so much better. And you saw, even in that Alabama game where he makes that catch, you saw an example of somebody who has learned not only to be able to how to track the ball in the air, but to be able to control your feet, to be able to make a catch while knowing you're about to get hit, and the boundary is mere inches from your big toe. I think that's the type of NFL play that teams see, and they're like, okay, he's got a grown awareness as to where he is on the field, and be able to make contested catches too. Because anybody can be wowed with a 40 time. I think Al Davis was probably the most easily wowed of any
Al
owner.
Davis would be picking Nick number one.
Oh, and no.
Immediately. Number one on the Raiders draft
Al Davis
board.
would start the draft today. He would make us will start the draft today so he could draft Nick Harbor number one. Because if he saw Darius Hayward Bay run like a 4.2, he's going to watch that man run a 40 and it would have completely fallen out of his chair. Rest in peace, Al Davis, but would have completely fallen out of a chair watching Nick Harbor run in a straight line.
Yeah, so Tommy Shea hasn't picked number 11. I think that's really, really interesting based on how we've been following here and what the national narrative, because also, and this is so silly to say this, but a lot of the narrative around Nick Harbor is, hey man, that dude was he was a 99 rating in the college football game.
It's all video game based. It's all video game based.
And that's actually, it sounds silly to say that, but nationally, that's what people are knowing him for. So when we come back, we'll hear Shane Beamer talk about where Nick is in his progression and how far along he is as opposed to where he was last year. And what does that mean as far as the offense is concerned? This is the early game. Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Elijah Campbell joining us in studio. Last segment, we talked about Todd McShay and his way too early mock draft for 2026. And if you didn't hear it in the 6 o'clock hour, he had Lenora Sellers going number 4 to the Los Angeles Rams. He also had Cade Klubnik going number 5. Also, by the way, Clemson fans, if you haven't seen this, y'all dudes are stacked.
I'm a Clemson fan. I'm drooling while reading those.
Clemson had
picks.
5 dudes in the first round in his way too early pick. I don't know what that means for us as Gamecock fans, but hey, Clemson, seems like you got some dudes. I don't know. I don't study that roster, but just looking at this seems very interesting.
So think about it, Preston. 5 dudes potentially in the first round, according to Todd McShay.
Mm-hmm.
South Carolina's got 2 between Lenoris and Nick. I have seen a couple of mock drafts that have Jalen Kilgore in there as well.
Correct.
So if we assume those guys get taken, that would be 8 players from Carolina or Clemson taken in the first round of the NFL draft. I'm not a mathematician, but I know that is what, a fourth of the first round coming from college football players in this great state.
That makes for a good game.
That makes for an insane football game.
Well, listen, this is all mock. This is all way too early. This will probably absolutely not happen, but hey, we're here.
We're here. We are here for this. At what point at any time has there been a mock draft by somebody who is legit like Todd McShay, not someone like me who can sit at home in my underwear and just list players off the top of my head with no intel whatsoever? There's been this many players from this rivalry taken in the first round or projected to be in the first round.
Yeah, so he has Nick Harbor getting drafted number 11 to the Tennessee Titans, and that really is interesting because we've seen the development, we've seen the growth of Nick Harbor. Yesterday, Shane Beamer was talking at the Welcome Home meeting down in Somerville, my hometown, and he was having a lot of different conversations. You heard him express his frustrations with the NCAA as far as Rasul Faison was concerned, but he also talked about where Nick Harbor is in his progression. Jen, let's hear Shane talk about Nick.
He's so much farther along. Credit him and credit Mike Furry for how he's poured into him. Nick works really, really hard. You guys have heard me talk about that. I mean, even on our off days during the season, our off days are Mondays, and he's in there every Monday just running routes and working on his technique. And that's really, I would say, is just his route running and releases off the line of scrimmage. He's so much more polished. And he caught up, I can't remember if I told you guys or not, I apologize if I did, but he caught a ball in one of our scrimmages or in practice that was a similar route to a ball he caught against Illinois in the bowl game in the fourth quarter over on Illinois sidelines, like an out-breaking route. And I'm sick in the head. I was watching the TV copy of the Illinois game back during spring ball, just because I'm sick. And I watched him because, like, literally that same day he had made the catch in practice, and it was a similar route. And I texted him, like, I saw the TV copy of that play against Illinois in the bowl game, and then you ran a similar route in practice today, and it's just night and day. Just the details of the position, the way that he's able to get off the line of scrimmage, his burst coming off the line, the way he's able to sink his hips, get out of breaks. He just looks so much more natural and comfortable. And he's got a ways to go, and he'll be the first to tell you. But as far as I think the general, like, techniques and fundamentals of the position is what he's really improved at.
So there was Shane talking about Nick's improvement, his gradual improvement, and I think you could probably link that all to the idea that, oh yeah, he's spending all of his time working on football instead of trying to split his time between football and track, right?
Mm-hmm. The repetitions matter, especially like we've all done things in our lives, whether it be sports or anything else, where we do it for a little bit and then something else takes priority, and the skills that you develop with the other thing that you did don't go away, but they get rusty. And then there's a reacclimation period, right? And that's why, being able to go through an entire spring, he doesn't have to relearn how to run routes. He doesn't have to mess them up in practice a couple times before being like, okay, this is how I'm supposed to do this. This is how I'm supposed to plant my leg when I, break the route or do anything, because it's such a technical position. Like route running is one of those things. I can watch a bunch of different wide receivers run routes and think they're all good, but somebody who's an NFL scout or a college coach can say, no, I mean, this is if you watch the foot here, he kind of gives what he's about to do. Like, route running is a lot more art than science at times too. And to be able to continue that craft and build it a little bit without taking that break, it has to be an incredible improvement for him to be able to start the fall at a much better position than he started last fall.
Yeah, it makes a huge difference. And as you were saying that, this guy who's obviously has walked off the deep end, but Antonio Brown was on social media running routes against Shiloh Sanders. I don't know if you've seen.
Oh, I
this.
haven't seen
Okay.
this. Oh my God, I want to.
He was cooking them, right? Obviously, because Antonio Brown was one of the greatest wide receivers, even though he is crazy as a bag of nails, but that's not the point.
Cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
But if you was to watch the technicality in which he was running these routes, and he did this move where the ball was in the air and he bends the route back into Shiloh to get distance from the ball, and it's like all of these really extremely technical things that great wide receivers do, and you say, oh yeah, that's why that guy was amazing at his position despite all of his issues. The dude still knows how to run routes. I say all that to say this. Yes, playing wide receiver, there is obviously the physical aspects of it, but there's hugely technical aspects of it. And with repetitions, you get better and better and better at doing it. Last year in the spring, they were like, oh, well, he's taking mental reps, and he's at practice and he's taking mental reps and he's getting better. And it's like, mental reps don't work.
No, I can watch Antonio Brown or Devontae Adams run routes all day, and I can take every note of every centimeter of movement that their feet do, or what their head would do on the top of a route, or how they break routes, how they separate from receivers. You know what I'm not going to be able to do on a football field? I couldn't line up against you and run those routes.
Right.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No, I think I run one slant and I might pop my Achilles at this point in time. I can take as many mental reps as humanly possible, but you get my slow rear end on a field out there, and I'm going to hurt myself trying to do what I watch other wide receivers who are the best in the world at this do.
I mean, you're a play caller now, so
This is true.
That 29 yards per play. The stats don't lie. That is. Forever. How many offensive coordinators in college football have 29 yards per play? I'd say there's not many.
But I'm sure you would need more reps at calling plays, right?
Yeah, to call non-trick plays, right? I acted on the element of surprise. I'm like Francis Marion in the Revolutionary War. Me and my troops, we operate on the element of surprise, and there's nothing more surprising than having a team or the offense that you lined up against all spring, line up in a wishbone formation. Mm-hmm. Those fellas hadn't seen that. I asked DQ Smith. I was chatting with him on the sideline during the game, and like, hey, that first play, you ever lined up against that in your career? And he laughed and he goes, no, I thought we were tripping. We came out there in that formation. I said, we haven't seen this all spring. So they were scrambling. I operate on the element of surprise. And if I had to call more plays, I can't gimmick my way through all of that. It would take more reps.
So you need reps. And reps is the mother of all learning. The more you do something, the better you get at it. It doesn't matter what it is. And so if Nick is taking more reps at practice, being able to work on his game, it only makes sense that he's further along in his development than he's been before. Now, if Nick Harbor gets picked number 11 in the 2026 draft, what does that mean for the South Carolina offense this season?
That means you're scoring 30 a game.
Okay.
That means, you look at the question marks on this team right now, it's how you're going to replace 5 NFL dudes on the defense, right? There's going to be a period where the defense isn't holding up to the level that we saw this past year just because of roster retention, just because you had guys, you don't just replace 5 NFL dudes. I'm going to channel my inner Rick Pitino here and say TJ Sanders and Kyle Kennard and Nick Emenwari and Tonka Hemingway, they're not walking through that door. Demetrius Knight ain't walking through that door, right? Like we're going to have some Pitino game moments next year. So the offense is going to have to be the thing that carries you for about the first 5 or 6 weeks of the season until you get that continuity on the defensive side of the ball. If you get Nick Harbor to project to be a number 11 pick and he plays that way, compared to what you have with Lenore Sellers and say the offensive line, all the guys that you bring in, which I feel really good about, holds up, then you have an offense that's one of the best in the SEC. and that's going to be what carries you. That would bode so well to what this team wants to do. And given the question marks of the teams that you're playing this year, we don't know what Ole Miss has on offense this year. They also replace a lot of dudes on defense. LSU's been a walking defensive question mark since Brian Kelly took the job. Alabama has a quarterback question that they're going to have to completely change their offense for because Ty Simpson ain't Jalen Milroe, right? Like those guys, those are two completely different skill sets on completely different planets and stratospheres. There are other teams that you're playing that have question marks that are also vulnerable. If your offense is that good from the jump and Nick Harbor does play like a number 11 pick in the NFL draft, you're feeling really good about what your team's looking like by the time you get to October.
As I'm looking at this, because he's number 11, and I just want to scroll through this very quickly. And again, this is all projection, but this is essentially what would he happen. According to this McShay draft, he'd be the first wide receiver off the board.
Oh.
So that means he'd have. I mean, that means that season, you got to start thinking like, oh, we're like playoff contention here, right? If you have a number 4 quarterback and the first wide receiver off the board, like you said, that means we're scoring 30. That means, but that also would lead to this. What is more frustrating as a fan? Let's just say hypothetically, based on what you said, what was more frustrating? To have a defense that can't stop anybody, or offense that can't score any points?
The more frustrating to me is, for me personally, offense that can't score points. That absolutely cannot score points. I love winning in shootouts. Sometimes you lose in a shootout, and it's painful, but at least there's some fun along the way. You lose in a fashion where both teams are scoring 40, and it's at least exciting football. But, man, I can't do a 27-3 game like against Ole Miss last year. You can't. That's how you get blown out. You get blown out in those losses.
When we come back, Paul Maneri says he's coming back. So is the early game. Press here for our friends at Absolute Glass, the premier glass company of the Midlands, offering auto, home, and business glass repair. So if your glass is damaged, shattered, cracked, or broken, they can handle the job. Cracked windshield, no problem. They'll come out to your location and replace it for you, usually for free, and they'll work directly with the insurance to take away the headache. That's right. They'll come out to wherever you are, school, home, work, it does not matter. Absolute Glass will take care of the job for you. Now, if you're at home and you're looking to increase the value of your home, you can do that with new windows or mirrors, and Absolute Glass will take care of that for you too. Windows, mirrors, shower enclosures, it doesn't matter. Absolute Glass will do it. If you can see through it, Ray and Marianne at Absolute Glass can do it. So check them out online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com. That's online at AbsoluteGlassInc.com.
I-20 eastbound and Broad River Road, an accident there. Also, I-20 westbound at I-77. And still trying to work things or get things cleaned up. Kittiwake Drive at Two Notch Road. Sunny today, and then the mostly sunny days will go away for a few as we will get into a pattern of some showers each and every day. Today's high, 82 with those sunny conditions. Then we'll have chances for showers each and every day, really, for about the next week. 76 for the high tomorrow, 83 on Thursday, 79 on Friday. Get into the low to mid 70s for the weekend. Right now, though, we are sitting at 54 with some cloudy conditions on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome into the early game. Welcome back into the early game. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for staying with us. If you've been with us this whole time, we've been having a lot of conversations today, a couple of different conversations that are happening right now. We'll get to the most important one here in a second. But, Elijah, the playoffs have started. NBA playoffs, I think, and I think maybe NHL playoffs also. It's fun the first round, but this is the round.
This is when it gets heavy.
This is when it's fun. It's every other night. Teams are playing. You're going back and forth. And last night provided everything I've been telling y'all. Hey, listen, if you've been out on the NBA, I get it. Okay, cool. But this is excellent basketball that is happening. And what I want to do with you really quickly is I want to go through maybe a NBA playoff pressure meter.
Ooh, I love this.
Who is under the most pressure? All right. So we're just going to go by series by series. I just want you to pick the team that's under more pressure. All right. Let's start with the series that, though it's maybe involving the best teams in the NBA, a position that nobody actually really cares about. Cleveland versus the Pacers. Ooh. Who's under more pressure?
Oh, man. I gotta go Cleveland just because they had such a good regular season. Win 60-plus games.
By the way, somebody's hearing that and saying, what? Who?
Yeah, Cleveland?
Yeah.
Is LeBron playing?
He's not there.
LeBron James is not a Cleveland Cavalier anymore. He is not walking through that door. And they've got some injuries right now, too. Like, I know DeAndre Hunter, Evan Mobley, who was the Defensive Player of the Year in the NBA this year, and Darius Garland, Nashville basketball legend. They are questionable for tonight. And if you don't have those three guys, then you're staring down the barrel of going down 2-0 in the series, losing the first two at home. Ooh. That's a lot of pressure for the rest of the series.
I'm sure there's some analytics on that. Let's stay with the Eastern Conference. Knicks, Celtics.
As of right now, man. See, because like the favorites are always the ones that are under pressure. But if I'm the Celtics, I know they lost last night. They're not missing 45 threes again.
Say that again for somebody that might. Was that a typo?
Oh, that was not a typo. The Boston Celtics missed 45 three-pointers last night. They were 15 of 60 from beyond the arc. And this is a team that flirts with shooting close to 40% for the season. And they will shoot a ton of threes. That's the only way to beat the Boston Celtics because they are so good defensively. And every single player is a threat to score, and they move the ball so well. The only way to beat them is to hope they miss shots. And last night, the New York Knicks got a gift from God for the Celtics to miss 45 three-pointers last night, and it still went to overtime. They only won by 3.
That won't happen again.
I would say the pressure right now is on the Knicks to be able to get leads early in the game, sustain them. And the pressure is hinging on whether or not the Celtics miss a boatload of threes again.
Also, the Celtics won their championship last year. They're good.
Yes.
They got that. They got
There's
that
no
monkey
legacy
off
on the line for these guys.
The Knicks, it feels a little bit pressure. You have Tibbs. They made the trade for Cat. It just feels like, and they got rid of two guys who everybody really loved, and DiVincenzo and Julius Randle. Even see Hardenstein running around. So they broke up the people like that team. They were willing to accept if this team wins, but keep an eye on that. All right, Western Conference. Under more pressure, Golden State Warriors or Minnesota Timberwolves?
Ooh, this was the one that I had the hardest time kind of coming to a consensus on, because, again, the core with Golden State, at least between Draymond and Steph Curry, have 4 titles, right? I don't even think they feel pressure coming into this game. And defensively, they're probably the best team remaining right now because you have Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green. I want to go Timberwolves, not just because they're the first team in 27 series that has been favored against the Golden State Warriors, but because they're also in win now mode, right? Because contracts are about to come back, kick back in too. Anthony Edwards is about to get his, and you're going to have to make him one of the highest paid, if not the highest paid player in the NBA, which means you might not be able to have enough money to keep a Rudy Gobert, who is the best defensive center that we've seen in the NBA since Dwight Howard or Ben Wallace. You might not be able to keep a Julius Randle. You might not be able to keep some of the role players, because they have great role players. Nas Reed's going to be a unrestricted free agent this year. Nas Reed might be one of the best undersized bigs in the NBA.
Every time I catch a Timberwolves game, I'm like, Nas Reed, is good.
A glue guy, an incredible glue guy, an incredible defender. I think that, if they don't win this year, that window's going to start shrinking a little bit.
All right. So you're saying
I'm going to go Minnesota.
Minnesota. All right. Now here's the one I think is really interesting: OKC or the Denver Nuggets. Who's under more pressure?
You win 68 games in the regular season, you cannot get bounced in the conference semifinals. I don't care if your team is in Oklahoma City. I don't care if it's in New York, Los Angeles, Helena, Montana. I don't care where your team's at. You win 68 regular season NBA basketball games. Anything short of making it to the NBA Finals is a disappointment.
Even if you're playing against the best player in the galaxy.
Even if you're playing against the best player on planet Earth right now, which Nikola Jokic is. And they won last night because he dropped 42 points and grabbed 22 boards and also dished 6 assists. And you might hear that and be like, Elijah, that's a crazy stat line. The 6 assists is actually really low compared to what Jokic has done all year. He averaged a triple-double. That's actually 4 assists below average, but he picked up for it by grabbing, almost a quarter of 100 rebounds and scoring 42 points.
It's crazy. So you're going OKC.
Got to go OKC. And you have a player that's going to win the MVP, even though I think Nikola Jokic should be the MVP. SGA is going to get it because of the year he had. And so you're going to have the MVP. You have 68 wins in the regular season. They're not in that time crunch that Minnesota's about to be in, because I think Chet still has another year or two on his rookie deal. Jalen Williams, I think, has another year or two left on his rookie deal. You still have next year to be the do or die year. And I think this team is ahead of schedule by about a year. But you win 68 games, that tells me you can win this thing right now. And if you don't at least get to a conference final or the NBA Finals, no one's going to look back fondly on 68 wins, because there's going to be but you dropped one to the Denver Nuggets, despite their championship pedigree.
So that was the NBA playoff pressure meter. We're going to keep that updated. I want to check back in with you maybe a little bit later in the playoffs, maybe have you call in for that. But we have Elijah Campbell in here, and it's only perfect that Elijah's in here, because if you don't listen, if you haven't heard the station, Elijah is with Jay in the post-game show from 3 to 6, and they have a standing appointment with Coach Paul Maneri. Mondays, 5:15.
5:15 every Monday.
And as you've said, you can see the light leaving his eyes as he's had to stand up and be accountable. To his credit, he showed up for every appointment, and he's had to take the darts. He's answered all the questions. And yesterday, you all asked him the question that we've kind of came around after this past weekend. And we'll hear his audio on the other side. But just from your perspective, what did you take from the conversation that you had?
It sounded like a man who did not want to end his illustrious career as a college baseball coach by losing 25 conference games in a season. That's exactly what it sounded like. I mean, if you put yourself in Paul's shoes, you took Notre Dame to a College World Series, you took the LSU job, you went to countless Omaha trips, you won a national title, you have won as much in the sport as anybody has won in the sport, and you have turned yourself into a legend in the game. You have reached the pinnacle of what coaching in college baseball is, and you come back for one last go round at a place that has a history of winning, a place that is one of the staples of college baseball. When I first started watching college baseball, South Carolina was great. I remember I was in high school when Carolina went back to back. And I've always known in my entire life, I am 30 years old, I have never lived in a world in which South Carolina is one of the worst teams in the SEC. And so you take this job, and then in the 1 year that you're here, you have turned yourself into the worst team in the SEC, not named Missouri, and we can completely eliminate Missouri from the discussion
because they're not trying.
They don't care,
yeah.
right? They don't care. 15 of 16 teams in this league care, and you are 15 of 15. That sounded like a man who does not want to go out that way, and he is going to stay as long as he can to make sure that when he does eventually leave this job, because we all know his age, he's not coaching forever here. That he does not want to leave this place in a worse shape than what he's found it. And right now, they are in a worse shape than it is whenever he took this job around, this time 11 months ago.
Well, those are the facts. And that's clear as day. And as I said, he acknowledged it and he stood up for it. When we come back, we'll listen to Coach Mainieri talk about his plans for the next year, what he thinks next year is going, and also his plans moving forward. This is the early game.
Emery Lane at St. Andrews Road. We have a report of an accident there. I-20 eastbound at Broad River Road and I-20 westbound at I-77. As we mentioned, sunny skies, great today, going to be dry. And then we get into a little more of kind of an unsettled pattern where we will be seeing chances for rain for multiple days. 82 today and then 76 tomorrow, 83 on Thursday. And the chances for rain continue into the weekend. Right now, though, it's overcast and 55 on 107.5 The Game.
Welcome back into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Tall Man, Elijah Campbell in the building today. Having a lot of discussion. We talked about the NBA playoffs, and we're both coming to the, or at least myself, yeah, OKC, that pressure meter might ratchet up because they blew one.
They had it won last night.
They blew it.
There was some coaching folly in that too. Coaching and mental folly from SGA and
I mean, Aaron Gordon hits a big shot, hits a big three to put him ahead for the Nuggets.
Tip your cap to him.
But yeah, that is a tough loss, one they're probably gonna look back on. But the most important thing of the day is yesterday Paul Maneri made a declarative statement saying that he's coming back. And Jen, can we hear clip number 3 here where Coach Maneri talks about his plans for the future?
Well, you just got to take it one day at a time. You know, it's I'm not going anywhere. I mean, I'm totally committed to getting this program back on track and competing for championships, as you mentioned. That's why we came here. But I knew it wasn't going to be easy. I knew there's a reason that there's a coaching change, and you inherit a situation. You do the very best that you can. I love the kids. They're giving me everything they got. And we're gonna, like I said, recruit like crazy and hopefully put a better team out there next year. We need to get some hard throwing pitchers, and we need to get some guys who can hit the ball out of the ballpark, because that's what wins in this league. And if you look at the conference statistics, we're way down there in striking out batters, and we're way down there in hitting home runs. And those are the things we need to address, and we are addressing them. But as far as my status, there's no conversations about anything. I came here to do a job. I know it doesn't look like we're making progress to most people. I understand that, but probably to expect that we were going to win the national championship my first year here might be a little bit, optimistic, so to speak. But we're working hard every day to build for the future, and I'm totally committed to the University of South Carolina. Despite the conference record, I've loved my time here, and I really love the kids on the team. They're trying their very best, and some days it doesn't match up against who we're playing, but they're giving me everything they've got, and like I said, the coaches are giving them everything they have. So it may not satisfy a fan base, and I totally understand that, but the best we can do is all we can do, and that's what we're doing right now.
So that's Coach Paul Maneri laying out his side of the equation, because there was a lot of conversation, fairly, rightfully, and I think everybody's asking, hey, Coach, you came out of retirement. You are at an advanced age. We obviously respect your history, respect your record. We respect everything you do. That's why everybody was excited when you came here. But this season has been a disaster. It's period.
Point blank.
Point blank. The question I think that everybody was asking is like, hey, man, do you want to do this anymore? Is this something that you're still interested in doing? Because I think everybody would totally understand if he was to look around and say, you know what? I tried. It didn't work. Let me move out the way. But that's not what he said yesterday.
It's not. No. And that's like the thing when we were discussing before the show whether or not this is something we should ask, or really it was more so how we ask it, not whether or not we should, because we should. Because think about it. Put yourself in Paul's shoes. There's like two different camps here that you can kind of think about it, where you're in the middle of giving up 11 runs in the 9th inning of the second game of the Florida series en route to which would be an embarrassing football loss, 22-3, let alone an embarrassing baseball loss, where you're in the middle of that and you're thinking about, man, I've got a nice home in Florida I could be hanging out in right now. I could be sipping on some lemonade and enjoying my day and not having to worry about working the long hours it takes to be a college baseball coach and putting up with things like the transfer portal and playing GM and having to acquire talent for a brand new roster every year. I mean, quite frankly, the modern college athletic coaching it's definitely a young man's game. Someone who wants to be able to put in those type of hours and put up with a lot more than you used to put up with in this situation. You can think that, or the way he answered that question is what leads me to believe he's in this camp, which is, I have been too good at this job for too long for my career to end like this. So unless you drag me out of here, I want to fix what has been messed up and to put out the fire that currently is the baseball program here.
Well, dragging him out is an option.
That is an option.
That is an option. We can't say that that's not an option. We can't say that that's not on the table, because that is always something that you have to be aware of. Though he does have some financial protections, which maybe we'll get into a little bit later in the week.
A lot of them.
A lot.
Like 7 million reasons.
A lot of financial protections. So that is an option. But I think for the discussion, we can get his part of the discussion off the table. Yes, he wants to come back. Yes, he intends to come back. And yes, he has plans for the future in coming back. Let's go out to the phone lines real quick. Let's go out to Ray talking about Gamecock baseball. Ray, what you got? Appreciate you listening.
Hey, guys. Good morning. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on it. Oh, man, I tell you, he's like a lot of great coaches. Some programs will take a risk and they'll bring in a legend, and sometimes it works out, but probably more often than not it doesn't. And I don't think it's a situation where the game is passing by. I just don't think it's working. These guys, they come back and they've been legendary coaches other places. Like, I know it worked with Spurrier and some degree with Coach Holtz, but I think this one is way different, because he came into a situation that was, it was okay. I'm not going to say it was great, but it was okay to good. There were expectations that maybe he could be a difference, getting him, from a regional to a super regional. But like I called in earlier, I don't think he came in for a rebuild situation. Now he's talking about, well, they fired the coach, what do you expect? And, so you're hearing that typical coaching talk. And I think that Donati, I really think he just needs to say, look, Paul, you came here, it didn't work out. We got to move on, because what if we're in the same situation next year? I think it's time to move on. Maneri, he's a legendary coach. Just move on and retire and just mark it up that it just didn't work out. But I think the powers that be, which is Donati at this point, not Tenor, he needs to make a change, and we need to just start rebuilding. And I heard your guy that comes on every Monday morning making the comment, well, if you come in and you make a change and you just go to the portal and get all these new players, what are you going to say to these kids or whatever? Well, that's what you do these days and times. We're past the point where you recruit a kid and you want to build them. If you have kids like that, that's great. But this is a time, man, you got to move fast. And I think Donati needs to make that move. And with all due respect to Coach Maneri, he's a legendary coach. It just didn't work out. That's all I got to say. Thank you, guys.
Ray, appreciate your call.
Thanks, Ray.
And I don't think that's not a fair assessment. I do think if there's anybody out there that found yourself agreeing with Ray, I don't think you're wrong. There's also the other side of this guy is somebody who they did hire for a job for a specific amount of time, and he hasn't accomplished that yet. So
you brought him in to win now. Yeah, and you're not winning now. And here's the only hang up. And Ray, I agree with the sentiment of starting over. That could really benefit this program. But think about it this way. You only have so much money that you can allocate to the baseball team now that we're in a revenue share era that involves having to pay a lot of money to football, a lot of money to men's basketball, which you're also trying to fix desperately, considering you also went 2-16 in the SEC that last season in a league that got 14 of 16 teams in the tournament. and you allocate a lot of money to women's basketball because there's a standard of winning here that isn't just competing in the SEC, it's competing for national championships.
Winning
national titles, and you're doing that. So that costs a lot more money too. So with all of that, all of those mouths that you have to feed right now, you don't get the type of money for baseball that you probably would realistically want to do. So if you are to fire Paul Maneri, you're going to owe about a smidge over $5 million. If you want to fire the coaching staff, remember, Monty Lee's the highest paid assistant in college baseball. He's one of the top 20 highest paid coaches in all of college baseball, head coaches included. So between firing him and Terry Rooney, that's going to be an additional $2 million. So if you want to clean house with the coaching staff, that's $7 million. If you want to get another head coach to replace them, if you want it to be good enough to be able to win at the level you want to win at, you can't just pay him $600,000. You can't pay him what you were paying Mark Kingston. Mark Kingston wasn't making $1 million. So if you want to get an upgrade from Mark and Paul, you're going to have to fork over about $1.5 million, probably at the minimum. And you're probably going to have to sign that contract to be 5 or 6 years long. So then you're going to have to allocate a lot more money over that time with $1.5 million. And then if you want to have the support staff needed to win, you're going to have to invest the same money, if not more, that you're investing in Terry Rooney and Monty Lee to be able to build out your staff. Oh, yeah. And you need to rebuild the roster, which nowadays, as we all know, is going to cost a lot of money. Let's say, $7 million for coaching buyouts, $1.5 million for your coach. So that's going to be about what, close to $9 million. That's not even counting the assistants you're going to have to hire too. And then you're going to have to allocate about another $1 million to the roster as well. That's $10 million funding in that you're going to have to. This is just loose math here, nothing concrete. But that's a lot of money that you're going to have to pay to expect legitimate results in year one again. So you'd still be starting over, but at a significantly higher cost than what you'd be doing starting over with a new roster with this coaching staff next season. I get the frustration because this season has been an absolute disaster from any way manageable. There is zero excuse to lose a baseball game 17-0. There's zero excuse to lose a 10-run lead on the road in the SEC. There is zero excuse to lose a baseball game 22-3 against a team that has been bad for most of the season. Yes, I know Florida's playing well right now, but Florida is still a team that if they didn't have this winning streak in the last couple of weeks, wasn't looked at as an NCAA tournament team. And they came in here and ran you over and almost beat you by 20 runs. I completely understand that. And in any other world where you don't owe that much money for buyouts for a coaching staff, I think you do make that change. Unfortunately, that's not the reality we live in here right now because of the money that is owed and promised to this coaching staff. I think that would just make it harder from a money perspective, because if you're going to do that, you got to take away money from somewhere else. And that's the thing I don't know if as an athletic director you want to do, considering you have all this momentum in football. You're trying to do a similar salvage job with your men's basketball program, and you want to keep Dawn Staley happy enough so she can continue winning you national championships here. There's so many factors that go into it other than just the baseball team completely tanking the season.
But that's why Jeremiah Donati gets paid the big bucks.
Right.
He gets paid a lot of money to make these decisions. Exactly.
That's why he gets paid to make the decisions. This is a decision that I think.
But are we going to get to a point where they stop putting buyouts in contracts? I just
no. I don't think they unfortunately no. I don't think they will because.
I mean, because we've been paying on Muschamp for how long? Maybe that's all done now, but like. You have people who are that sports. It drives me crazy because it seems like in sports that's about the only place where if you're terrible at your job, well, what really is the incentive for them to do well in their job? Because hey, if I screw this team up, I still have $10 million I'm going to collect, and I can go sit on my tush on a beach.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't see it even moving out of the coaching landscape because the agents have done such a great job of baking it in, and when they have to leave, they don't have to pay it because the schools pick up the tab for them, which is that's a whole.
We can blame Jimmy Sexton for this.
Jimmy Sexton, you probably go straight to him. Listen, everybody, you have 100% right to feel however you feel, but I think Elijah did an excellent job of laying out these two sides of these conversations, which is not just going to be as easy as I don't want that. I want this, because there's a lot of financial ramifications. When we come back, we'll talk about a absolute legendary coach who's had to step away for another reason. We'll celebrate Greg Popovich and the San Antonio Spurs dynasty. This is the early game.
Highway 21 at Marthin Road, an accident there. Still working I-20 eastbound at Broad River Road and Emory at St. Andrews Road. And yeah, we're going to see sunny skies. Sun is working on it right now. And that will continue today. We'll enjoy that. 82 for the high. And then we get into that pattern of some daily possibilities for showers. 76 tomorrow, 83 on Thursday, 79 on Friday. We'll be kind of in the low to mid 70s for your Mother's Day weekend. Right now, though, 58 at 107.5 The Game.
I want to make sure everybody understands what the new job is. I'm no longer a coach. I'm El Jefe.
Welcome into the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Elijah Campbell. That was maybe the GOAT, maybe.
In my opinion,
can we have a sporty sport conversation here?
I would take Greg Popovich over Phil Jackson.
Okay,
and Red Auerbach.
There's a lot of conversations to be had, but that was Greg Popovich officially stepping down as the head coach of the San Antonio Spurs. Obviously, he's been the coach there for forever in some people's lives. Had some health issues, which he stepped down. Had some health issues earlier this year. Suffered a stroke. He's been going through some health issues. He officially stepped down yesterday, and it was sad, I guess, because you never want to see somebody, and sometimes it's jarring when you haven't seen somebody and then you see them after they have they're having their health challenges, and it's like, oh man, okay, this is actually really serious. But on the flip side of that, it was so poetic and awesome to see his two guys walk him up to the podium to walk up there. And if those not familiar, Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili were there, standing by his side, helping him, having the conversation with him. It was a really beautiful ceremony. For as sad as it could have been, it was really awesome to see that.
Yeah, they made the best of it. And that's something, too. Having Tim Duncan and Manu Ginobili there, it shows something that you don't see in pro sports a lot, because once you get to the pros, the players make more than the coaches. The relationship between coach and player is a lot more businesslike, and it's no longer what you'd consider almost like a fatherhood type figure once you get to the pros. Like it's a winning business. Everybody's coaching and playing for their jobs essentially on a daily basis. But Greg Popovich means so much to those two players who are Hall of Fame players. They came back and Tim Duncan works within the organization now, so it makes sense. But Manu Ginobili, came back to basically celebrate what his career is, and how many coaches in professional sports, whether it be the NBA, NFL, MLB, NHL, especially not the NHL, they recycle coaches like they're plastic water bottles. But how many of those leagues see coaches coach for 30 years or almost 30 years? I think I went back about 2 or 3 days ago and looked. Preston, I was still in diapers when Greg Popovich took the San Antonio Spurs coaching job. I am 30 years old, and I was a toddler.
So
I was not speaking.
This is 97? 90, was that his first year?
I think it was the 96-97 season.
97
so
season.
The fall that he took over as the head coach, I was about a year and a half.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it's wild to think about.
Yeah,
to
when
me,
you start thinking about stalwarts, you start thinking about people who've been around. Pop has just been around in the NBA forever. Not only just hanging around, been outrageously successful. To read it again, and this is just straight from Google. From 99 to 2014, they win 5 championships. They win in 99, 2003, 2005, 2007, and 2014, which is the real kicker, because it's like the old guys fight back.
Yep.
All of a sudden, there's this new dude. How do you pronounce his name? Kawhi. All of a sudden, there's this dude. He's a 3-and-D dude, and they still have the other big three. They're still Parker, Duncan, and Ginobili. But then they have a whole nother way that they're playing ball now, and they're running it through him. And
Boris Diaw turned into Nikola Jokic for 5 games in the finals.
It's fascinating to watch this. And so, when we think about dynasties and franchises, you don't necessarily, I don't know why you wouldn't think about the Spurs, but maybe you don't because we're kind of away from that time period. But this is as a legit dynasty as any other one that we've seen in sports. And it kind of has all the markings of a dynasty. You have a stalwart coach. You have these players who are there for a long time. You have these things. And they had a big three who was as unassuming a big three as you would have. It's very different than the big threes that came later, right?
Oh, significant.
Totally unassuming. All had a very unique style in the way that they played ball. You know, you think about Tony Parker, you think about the way Manu played the game and his frenetic beauty, the way he was able to get things. Tim Duncan, does anybody still hit shots off the glass like Duncan? No
one does.
But nobody does these things anymore. So it's just a very unique period in NBA history that the chapter closed yesterday when he stepped down as the Spurs head coach.
And the two things that I love about that dynasty they built was one thing that you touched on was their big three, because you think about big threes now and you think about, like LeBron, Bosh, Wade, you think about KG, Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, like these guys were masters of their own role. Like Tony Parker was a floor general, but could also score at will. Manu Ginobili came off the bench for almost his entire career. And he's a guy that, you look at like the overall career accolades and you might not think Hall of Famer, but then you look at influence. There is no James Harden if it's not for Manu Ginobili. NBA players, not everybody knows how to Eurostep. Everyone does it. Manu Ginobili Eurostepped probably around the time that it started becoming popular. There is no ubiquitous Eurostep in the NBA if there is no Manu Ginobili. And Tim Duncan's the quietest superstar to ever walk this planet because he is so quiet and his demeanor is what it is. People don't talk about him being a top 5, 6 player in the history of the NBA, but he is. He absolutely, like people want to have, LeBron, Jordan conversations. I get it, whatever. You want to put Kobe in the mix, okay, I get it, whatever. But you can't have an honest discussion about the best players of the 21st century if you do not mention Tim Duncan. The other thing about this one is the 5 championships is impressive and speaks enough on its own. How about winning 18 straight seasons of winning 50-plus games?
Wow.
We may never see that again. There are NBA championship teams now that win like 48 or 49 because the NBA regular season's been so watered down. But if you were born, imagine being born, and every year until you became a legal adult, one team was winning 50 games every year. Automatic, book it. NBA season starting, you can put in Sharpie that the San Antonio Spurs are winning 50 games and going into the playoffs. That is the stat. I think if you want to look at the San Antonio Spurs legacy as a dynasty, that's the one that absolutely just pops off the page with everything else.
And also to the point, they're all homegrown. All of those guys are drafted and grown within the organization and not free agent pickups. You start with David Robinson, you go to Tim Duncan, Parker, Ginobili, Kawhi, and now he still leaves it in the hands of the alien.
Victor Wembanyama,
it's still there.
The freak of nature. No one's ever seen anything like.
And so the Spurs are still in good hands. They pass the coaching reins down. And so again, as a dynasty, is somebody who we've lived around for a long time in sporting life. One of the greatest coaches of all time in sports history. If you wanted to make the argument of him being the GOAT, you could absolutely make that argument, and nobody would have any conversations with you. That being said, I think we have another round. Finish the show off of Preston or Reston. This is the early game. This is the early game. Preston Thorne, Jen Jensen, Elijah Campbell. Hopefully you've been with us the whole ride. We've had a lot of good conversations. We got Lenoris drafted number 4. Gets in the way too early Todd McShay mock draft.
To the Rams, thank God.
To the Rams.
Not the Jets or Browns. The kiss of death for any quarterback entering the National Football
Which, by the
League.
way, if there's a Clemson fan listening, thank you. But also, Cade Kluben's going to the Browns, so good luck with that, according to the draft. Bigger surprise, though, Nick Harbor, number 11 to the Tennessee Titans.
And wide receiver 1.
Wide receiver 1, first wide receiver off the board in this particular mock draft. And again, it's important to say that it's a mock draft. It's important to say that it probably doesn't mean anything, but it's also important to say that Todd McShay is plugged into the industry, and that's not coming from anywhere. So if folks are having these types of conversations, he is definitely plugged into that. The NCAA has still not ruled on Rasul Faison, so we're waiting on that. So running back 1 is still up for question as far as the Gamecocks are concerned. Shane spoke to that earlier. The biggest story of the day, though, is that Paul Mainieri has stated that he is committed. He's coming back. He has an eye towards the future, and he is ready to work towards Gamecock baseball in the future. Why is that a big conversation? Because people had questions. And Elijah Campbell and Jay Phillips on the postgame show from 3 to 6. If you don't listen, if you enjoyed Elijah today, tune into them. They do a great job. And you get to hear the statesman of Columbia, Jay Phillips, talk about everything. So I always enjoy listening to Jay. Tune into those guys. But y'all had him on the show yesterday, and you asked the question that had to be asked, and he answered it.
He did. And it sounded like a man who does not want his Hall of Fame coaching career to end in a dud. I think it sounded like a man who realizes the mess that he's got in front of him. And unless somebody pulls him from the job, he wants to leave this place at a better spot than when he found it. And right now, it is not in a better spot than when he found it. And I think he is itching at the opportunity to fix it, because right now this is one of the biggest challenges of his career, and this is a man who's been coaching for a long time.
And so in taking one of the bits from the post game with Elijah and Jay, we're going to play a game in homage to that. Jen, can we get the music one more time?
Yes. Oh, yes. So on the post game show, we played Jay or Nay, but for today, it's Preston or Reston. Is this a Preston take, or are we resting this for further evaluation?
Let's go.
I'll hit you with some new ones, because we've been talking about this earlier. This year's Carolina-Clemson game will be the most loaded with NFL talent in the history of this rivalry.
Listen, man, Preston.
Oh, he's going with it already.
Listen,
I love it.
McShay had 2 top 11 picks. I love how it's top 11 for South Carolina. And then he had 5 guys from Clemson picked in the first round. I don't know what that means. I'm not very familiar with that roster, but it looked like they had some dudes. Preston.
Yes, and that's going to be an incredible game if it ends up playing out that way. Preston or Reston, the Warriors will become the 4th road team in this second round to win Game 1 against Minnesota.
Reston. Give me the Ant-Man. Ant-Man continues to slay giants. He already got rid of LeBron.
Yes.
He gets rid of folks on a regular basis. Give me the Ant-Man. Reston.
I wish that I could walk around with a quarter of the confidence Anthony Edwards lives with, he sleeps with.
Yeah, there's that video that was going around when he was talking to President Obama, and he's like, "Oh yeah, tell him about me."
Right.
Y'all don't know. He doesn't know who I am.
Know who I am. Yeah. I am Anthony Edwards.
Yeah,
right.
That was a great show.
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious. Preston or Reston? The Toronto Maple Leafs will finally get back to a Cup final. They did win Game 1 against the Florida Panthers last night.
Reston, I am a Florida Panthers fan by way of the Dan Le Batard show.
Okay.
So I only know about the Panthers through them, and so they are excited about the Panthers. They took out the Lightning last round.
Again, that's like the third straight year they've done it.
Beat them again. So we are going with the Panthers. Reston on that.
Now we'll go back to a couple from earlier in the show. Preston or Reston? The Oklahoma City Thunder will lose the series against the Denver Nuggets because they have one more, what I like to call a rite of passage series left in them.
Preston. Preston. I am in the bag for Jokic. I find him thrilling to watch. It's so fun to check out his game. Had a nearly triple-double, 42, 24, and 6 last night, I believe.
Good Lord.
Yeah. Rest in that. Give me the Nuggets. And also the Brody is playing. The Russell Westbrook experience is live and full effect.
You are getting good Brody in this series.
Yes.
He helped him last night.
Yes.
He helped him last night.
Yes.
And is there a professional sport, Preston, that has so many predictable series, whereas it comes to one team that's a young team that has a great regular season, has to get punked at least once? I don't know if that exists anywhere else.
It has to happen in the NBA. So, yeah. So that was today's edition of Preston or Reston. Hopefully we get to play it again in an homage to Jay or Nay. I'm looking forward to it. Like I said, we did the NBA playoff meters, and we are excited. Anything else you want to leave them with?
Oh, man. I'm glad the Cincinnati Reds, they didn't win the game last night, but I'm glad they foiled the Atlanta Braves no-hit bid. If I can take any type of solace in that, my boy Randy tweeted at me last night, said, you couldn't at least let us have the no-hitter? No, I will not let you have the no-hitter. They have their own issues right now. They can't hit the ball at all. So we can at least not make it a lead story on ESPN with their futility at the plate. Then I can live with that. So I'm cool with playing the spoiler.
Playing the spoiler at least. Well, appreciate you, everybody listening. Thank you all for tuning in. Elijah, it's been fun as always.
Been real on
Jen, appreciate you. If nothing else, remember, Paul Maneri is back.
He's Leo DiCaprio, Wolf of Wall Street. He's not leaving.
Not leaving. Thank y'all.